Hello, friends, and welcome. I'm Cassidy Carson, and this is The Life of a Writer. Today is Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026, and I was reminded this morning by a helpful TikTok memory that this was the day last year that I took down Christmas. So I'm happy to report that I am ahead of the game this year because I actually put away the last of my Christmas decorations yesterday. They went into our storage area behind our house. So it feels good to be reminded that I am not as far behind as I thought I was, because I did leave Christmas up for quite a while again this year. But I finished the work in progress that I was trying to complete sooner than I did last year. So again, I'm ahead of the game, and that feels good. And sometimes we need those little reminders, which is, as I've mentioned, one of the reasons I'm posting these videos, because it's good to remind myself of what I've been doing and when I was doing it and how I felt about doing it and all of those things. So, yay me. It's good to be ahead of the game. I apologize. I'm having a little bit of a sinus thing today, so my mouth keeps drying out. So, with that reminder that this time last year I had just finished a draft of Passion Restored, which I coincidentally have right here, and the fact that I finished the draft of book 2 of Restless Spirits a couple weeks ago now, I think, and that's been off with the beta readers. I'm feeling pretty good about my progress so far this year, because we're just at the beginning of the second month of 2026, and I feel like I'm going to be closer to releasing the books that I want to release somewhere along the schedule that I originally hoped to get them out, based on my current progress. So that's just a little update. I also wanted to mention that I know my last couple of videos have been a little short, and I recorded them when I was pretty tired, so those are just indicators of where I was on those days, and I'm not going to go and change anything in them, but I do apologize if they were not very interesting. I think yesterday's video ended up being around 3 minutes long because I really didn't feel much like talking after the day, tucking everything out into storage. I was pretty tired and not feeling very well, so that is something I'm finding happens quite often these days. I'm trying to see if I can build my strength and energy back up again. So I'm doing what I can. It is challenging to be in my 60s, to be retired, to have all these grand plans of things that I want to do, and then not have the energy to do them. So I have managed to stick with my posting schedule for YouTube. I've posted a video every day this year so far, and I'm going to continue doing that even if I'm not feeling well, or, I'm really tired. Even if it is just a couple minutes long, I'm going to post something because I'm trying to hold myself accountable and be consistent. And like I said, some days it's hard, but that's just the way life goes sometimes. And really, the topic of today's discussion is actually Passion Restored. And I know I've already done a video about this, which I will link at the end of this one, but I'm taking a different approach to it today because I recently watched a video where somebody was talking about the difference between SEO and AEO. Now, we all know that SEO is search engine optimization, and you have to use specific keywords or search phrases for someone to find something. Now, AEO is answer engine optimization, and with the advent of AI, and it's not something that we may want to use, but a lot of search engines automatically will bring up an AI response when you search for something. So it is very hard to avoid it unless you use particular engines that don't have that option. I tend to use Google most often, and Google does have AI, so I'm not specifically trying to use it, but usually that will come up first. So basically, what I wanted to find out was the difference between search engine optimization and answer engine optimization. So I did a search based on a question. I asked about trending questions related to late in life romance books. And I had to specifically make sure to include books in my question, because if I didn't, it would come up with late in life, like those Match.com type of things where, how do you find a romantic partner later in life? Whereas I wasn't really looking for that. I was looking for people who are interested in reading romance books about later in life characters. So that is something to keep in mind if you're doing these kinds of searches, that you need to really make sure you are narrowing down the search to what you're really looking for. And my question about the trending questions related to late in life romance books brought up these results that actually do relate to my book, Passion Restored. So one of the questions is that people are searching not only for late in life characters, but some readers specifically want late bloomer characters. So they want someone who maybe has never been married. Maybe, I guess, they would never have really a serious relationship to begin with. And Angela Moran in Passion Restored would fall under that a little bit. She has had relationships. At the opening of the book, she is not in a relationship, and she hasn't been for quite some time. She lives with her mother. She's her mother's caregiver, and she's busy trying to, work and make ends meet and help take care of her mother, and really doesn't feel that she has time for romance. So I think she would fall under the late bloomer character in these books. Now, another one of the parameters that came up was complicated past. So on the opposite side, we have Nicholas Sampson in Passion Restored, who is he's the son of a wealthy industrial, wealthy business owner, basically. And he has been groomed to take over the family business, but that's not really where his interests lie. He's trying to separate himself. He is also in his 50s, and he's a divorcee. So he doesn't fall under the late bloomer in the romantic sense, but he may fall under late bloomer as he's trying to forge his own path in life. So the two characters, both in their 50s, I believe both of them could possibly fall under both late bloomer and complicated past, because the reason Angela is caring for her mother is that she had gone out as a young woman to try to start her life, and a series of events brought her home, and she felt that she needed to stay to take care of her mother. So she has very complicated feelings, not about her mother. She loves living with her mother. She loves being with her mother. They get along well. And her complicated feelings are related to the what ifs. What if she had continued on the path she started on as a young woman? So I think her complicated past is more mental, than Nico's, who is, physically and emotionally trying to distance himself from his family. Now, so if I label Passion Restored as a late in life book with late bloomer character, complicated past, that may bring me up in the searches when someone is using the answer engine optimization, basically. At least if my understanding is correct. Now, a couple other things that Passion Restored would fall in would be small town romance, because Passion Restored takes place in Virginia City, Nevada, which is a very small town. I believe there are under maybe 1,000 permanent residents within Virginia City itself. There is a subdivision nearby called the Virginia City Highlands. I don't know if that's considered part of Virginia City or part of Reno because it's so close. But So I'm pretty sure Passion Restored would also fall under small town romance. And then the another one of the questions that people had was that their late bloomer character, people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, would not be a virgin. And also, Angela would fall under that because she did have previous relationships. She lives life, it's just that circumstances caused her to kind of give up on the idea of relationships until she and Nico kind of are thrown together. So obviously, I'm trying to wrap my head around this whole idea of optimizing my book for answer engines. I never really figured out how to optimize it for search engines in the first place, so I'm not sure how successful I'm going to be in doing this, but my hope is that I'm going to try to make some changes to how I promote the book and, list out more of the tropes or the elements within the book that people would be interested in the hopes that those will be picked up by the answer engines. So I just wanted to pass that along in case you are someone who is also trying to market your books and you're not sure how it's working right now on social media. There are so many changes going on with things that it is very hard to keep up. I am not a digital native. I'm not even quite an early adopter. So I do catch on to things, but usually after the best time to hit something is when it's new and fresh. And I'm usually one of the later adopters. So please take everything I say with a grain of salt because I am not an expert in any of this by any means. But I am hoping that by sharing what I'm learning, at least what I'm hearing about, it gives you the opportunity to go do a little more research on your own, and maybe you could understand a little better the things that I'm struggling to figure out for myself. It always seems so easy that you just, look, I wrote a book. You want to read it, don't you? I would love it if marketing worked that way, but there are so many opportunities for authors and, artists and actors, and there's just so much available for people who consume art of any kind that just going out and say, hey, look, I made something, you want to check it out, doesn't really work. You need to find people that you have a kinship with. And that is something I mentioned that we're trying to do personally by hanging out with our local author community. JT is doing pretty well on finding some readers. He's actually had a series of discussions with someone on one of the game sites where he plays that the person bought Serving Salvation. I believe at the moment she's only reading the first book, but they've had quite the back and forth going where it's almost like he's got a little fan interaction going on, but in the meantime, she's also reading the book with a friend of hers. So they have a book club going on the side. So they're kind of going back and forth, and he's answering questions that they have. And it's like a fan/book club kind of situation. And I'm really enjoying watching this play out because whenever he gets a message about his book, he's always so excited. And he loves discussing his writing, as we all do. That's one of the reasons that we write, is that we want to get the words out there and we want people to hopefully enjoy them and be interested in what we have to say. So him doing this game site, actually, I think he's sold a few books that way to people he's played with off and on for years maybe, and they find out somehow or other that he is a writer. And then they start buying his books and chatting, and it's awesome. So that's something else to keep in mind as an author, that you don't necessarily have to try to always be promoting yourself on those like promotion sites like BookBub or Goodreads. I'm getting the two of them mixed up. BookBub or Goodreads. Now Goodreads is connected to Amazon, so that's a whole challenge if people don't want to use Amazon, BookBub. If you're trying to promote your book through them, you have to actually, it's almost like a competition to get a deal, like to be a featured author in one of their deals. So there are a lot of different challenges to trying to promote work when you're writing. And that takes a lot of time away from the actual writing process. So I hope that by sharing this little tidbit about answer engine optimization, maybe I can help someone, figure out a better way of promoting their work. And like I said, I'm going to see what I can do to bring us up in the rankings on answer engines but by the time I figure that out, they'll probably be on to the next thing, and it's just one thing after another. I don't know if I'll ever be able to catch up. I do hope that if you are following along on these videos, that maybe you'll check out one of my books or one of JT's books, and please feel free to leave comments. We'll be happy to answer questions you might have about them. I will admit that I am hoping that I can use my YouTube channel to help with marketing, but that's really not my primary goal. Like I've said, I'm trying to hold myself accountable, maintain some continuity in my life, and kind of keep a journal of what I've been doing, because if nothing else, I can always go back and say, okay, when did I do that thing? And maybe be able to find an answer to that question. So a little bit rambling again, but I wanted to talk a little bit about answer engine optimization and the fact that obviously I know very little about it yet, but I'm hoping to learn more and to be able to maybe not only utilize it for myself, but help provide guidance to others who might be in the same boat where we're trying to figure out the best way to do what we're doing. That's just life in a nutshell these days, trying to keep up and figure out the best way to do it. So I thank you for joining me on this discussion. I do hope that if you haven't yet checked it out, you pick up a copy of Passion Restored. You can request it through your local library. A lot of libraries have a way to request books. You can also request it at your local bookstores if you have small independent bookstores. Releasing our book through Draft2Digital, it is available through Ingram Spark, so independent bookstores can pick that up that way as well. And especially if you live outside Nevada, I would really appreciate if you would do things, even if you don't intend on reading it initially. Please go talk to your local library about picking up the book. I'm still very thankful to whoever picked it up at the New York Public Library, because that's been a highlight of my last few months. The fact that I can go there every once in a while and see that they have an e-copy of Passion Restored. I can't tell whether or not anyone has ever checked it out, but I would love to find out that somebody in New York had read my book. That would be so exciting. And do those little things. If you are a reader who is following along on this platform and you are kind of just curious about what writers do, I would hope that you will help support not only myself and JT, but other independent authors. Try to be aware of anybody in your local community. Keep an eye on your local newspapers, because JT and I do release press releases to our local media when we have a book coming up. So that is a good way to find out about authors in your area. And the nice thing about supporting your local independent authors is that they are so excited to be able to meet you and to talk to you, so you can actually interact with them on a one-on-one level in many cases. Whereas when you have these big name authors like our fellow Stephen King that we often mention in our podcast, the odds of running into Stephen King and actually being able to chat with him about his books is pretty slim, because he's so well known. But chatting with your local independent author is a much easier task, because they may be doing events in your local community. So Be sure to go out there and interact with your local authors whenever you can. Recommend them to your friends. Request them from your local libraries and independent bookstores. And while you're doing that, if you happen to think of JT and I, we would really appreciate it. So that's my discussion for today. I hope that it was something of interest to you. I found it quite interesting when I first heard the term AEO, and I will continue to try to educate myself, and I will let you know if I have any success in bringing our books up in the rankings so that they come up more often in those answer engines. Of course, I may be completely misunderstanding the whole thing, which would not be a surprise. I hope you're all having a wonderful day and a wonderful week so far, and take care of yourselves. I'm Cassidy Carson, and this is The Life of a Writer.